It's emerged that it was the Prime Minister who instructed Britain's most senior civil servant to tell the Guardian newspaper to destroy a computer which held files from the whistleblower Edward Snowden.
The ceremony that took place in your basement, when the secret ceremony, you all just broke up the hard disks and the laptops, is that right? Is that what everyone...
Yeah, it's harder to smash up a computer than you might think.
The paper, which had other copies of the Snowden files overseas, agreed to take an angle grinder to the computer while the intelligence agents watched.
We had the initial pressure in which the Cabinet Secretary arrived in my office and told me we'd had enough debate on this subject. The state decrees there's been enough debate, we'll stop that. And decided to drill out the hard disks of our computers in order to stop us reporting from London.
In America, the White House spokesman was asked, would Obama ever do such a thing?
That's very difficult to imagine a scenario in which that would be appropriate.
The serious point is this, and it goes back to Spycatcher, that I was completely clear with the Cabinet Secretary that there were copies elsewhere, and that the destruction of these computers was not going to stop reporting.
It was just a public relations exercise in the end.
I wouldn't say that, but I would say it was pointless. Their aim was to stop publication and to have a dialogue of the sort that we were having, and Mr. Robbins' witness statement makes it apparent the reason they didn't go for an injunction was because they felt that we were behaving responsibly. They lost control of the documents the moment they destroyed them in London.
Now, sending out viruses, hijacking social media accounts, and attacking computer networks. Those may sound like hackers' techniques, but they're also in the arsenal of Britain's spies. According to leaks from Edward Snowden, RT's Polly Boyker takes apart the tactics being used by GCHQ.
The list of GCHQ's latest antics reads a bit like a cartoon villain's manual. Edward Snowden's revealed that a covert unit within the agency is messing with targets' social media accounts. So they're changing their profile pictures on Facebook, they're posting and deleting statuses, and they're sending cryptic messages to their friends and family containing disinformation about them. Now, GCHQ's Joint Intelligence Threat Research Group even uses unwitting journalists to funnel information about potential targets. And they're also into honey traps. They pose as attractive women online in order to get potential targets to meet with them in person.
I think what's unique in this area, it's the first public proof that we've seen that serious issues of illegality have been brought forward. The interference with other people's communications, the violation of the privacy of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. If the government knows everything about you, information is power, and then they have enormous power over you. We always say something interesting here with all these revelations. When does the blackmail start?
GCHQ isn't a spy agency like MI5 or MI6. It's a government agency tasked with collecting and analysing data. And yet these most recent revelations show that their arsenal includes sending viruses and launching denial of service attacks against websites.
The attempt to do denial of service attacks on organizations they don't like are deliberate attempts to obstruct, to deceive. I think was the phrase they used. They call it deny, disrupt, degrade, and deceive. I mean, it's like a James Bond movie. But this is the stuff they're doing and have been doing for years. But this is the first proof that anybody's had that they've actually done it.
And yet hackers who don't work for GCHQ face prison if they do the same. And those campaigning for civil liberties here in Britain say they want to know why. Polly Boyko, RT, London.
And GCHQ may be playing dirty, but it's still lagging behind its larger partner, America's National Security Agency, when it comes to the scale of its spying operations. An Internet freedom campaigner told us that mass online surveillance is making people increasingly reluctant to speak out.
I don't see anybody advocating for the removal of curtains in everybody's house because we have nothing to hide. I think that there's an expectation of privacy here in the U.S. and around the world that's not being respected. And when that expectation is not respected, free speech suffers. We are much less willing to speak our minds online or offline if we know we're being watched and recorded and tracked. We're much less willing to engage in political activism, to assemble, to organize ourselves for whatever causes we believe in if we feel like the authorities are watching our every move. And even if the authorities right now might not necessarily be antithetical to the things that we believe in, maybe the next president or the next Congress or the next government will be, and they'll be able to use all of this data that they're collecting against us.